Before I get started, I want to acknowledge the people who are standing with me. Chicago Firefighters Union President Jim Tracy, of course our Fire Commissioner Richard Ford II, Chief Barb West of the Chicago Police Department, and President Kevin Graham of the Fraternal Order Police. Thank you all for being here. I'm excited about this announcement. Just moments ago, I spoke at the graduation of 34 new paramedics. And I'm always honored to participate in these graduations, but today I was especially proud. Ordinarily, their ceremony would have taken place at Navy Pier and not Public Safety Headquarters, but this is nothing, this time is not like any other. In this moment of crisis, true heroes have been emerging truly every single day. And among the most visible and most vital are our first responders. It's often said that our first responders run towards danger. And that reality has never been more true in these unprecedented times. We need to continue rallying as a city to support all of our first responders because we need them now more than ever. And as proof of that, we accelerated the EMT's coursework to enable them to graduate ahead of schedule. That's how badly they're needed. But it's not just them. It's all of our first responders, from our paramedics to our police officers, firefighters, and 911 call takers and dispatchers. They have been fighting on the front lines of this crisis, working round the clock and literally putting their lives on the line to keep our city safe. And just as they've been supporting us, we need to continue supporting them. That's why I'm proud to be standing here today, particularly with Presidents Graham and Tracy, to announce our latest action to help keep their members safe in this fight. Building on our announcement last week to use hotel space for individuals recovering from COVID-19, we are opening up additional hotel space for our first responders who are on the front lines of fighting COVID-19 to give them a safe place to stay during this crisis. Hotel Essex will be providing 274 rooms for first responders. This new resource is being paid as a direct response to things that we've heard from our first responders. I've said repeatedly throughout this fight that we must do everything we can to be responsive to the needs of our heroes on the front lines of this fight, our healthcare workers and our first responders. We will be announcing similar supports for healthcare workers. And I want to thank Hotel Essex and in particular the members of the Oxford Group for stepping up for their city and doing their part during this time of need. Hotel Essex leadership is exhibiting true civic leadership by their partnership in this effort. And I want to be clear on this. These rooms aren't for first responders who are themselves sick. We have hospitals for that. However, the reality is that they are coming in contact with the virus every day and working long, hard hours. And some of them may prefer to stay downtown rather than going home to their spouse, kids, parents, or friends. And we are embarking on a critical moment of this crisis, with the number of cases in Chicago doubling now about every 3 to 4 days. And we're expecting to peak in the coming weeks. There's no sugarcoating this. The numbers are going to get worse before they get better. But we've been working round the clock to ensure our city has been able to stay on top of this crisis and stay ahead of the need and the capacity in our hotels. And now is the time for us to be coming together and working together to save more lives and get our city back on track. Now, I'll turn over to our other speakers in a moment, but before I do, I want to commend the work of countless individuals in our city who have really been doing incredible work. I meant what I said before. Every single day, you see heroes emerge. Every single day, you see people stepping up out of their comfort zone to help a city in need, and we are grateful. In addition to our first responders and countless healthcare workers, we've had people from all walks of life stepping up and stepping forward to help out, from food assistance and childcare to donations and the type of support we're announcing today. All of this has been vital to our efforts to stay ahead of this crisis and keep our city moving forward. For anyone interested in stepping up for their city. You can do so now by visiting our website, chicago.gov/coronavirus. There's a ton of information on that website and specifically ways in which you can help us in the fight of our lives. But the biggest help you can give your city, as I've said over and over, is by staying home. If you are not an essential worker, please stay home, save lives. You go out for food, go out for medicine, go to see the doctor. Then you can go to exercise. But please don't congregate, because staying home truly saves lives. We have to be in this fight together. And just as our first responders have been supporting us, it's our job to support them by not spreading this disease further. And that happens by staying home and saving lives. Now, I've said this many times. This is a great city. We all know this. I think we feel this sense of pride that is propelling us forward in this challenging moment. And we can prove to the nation and to ourselves that in Chicago, while we may get bent, we will never, ever be broken. And it's my pleasure to welcome Jim Tracy to the podium to say a few words. President Tracy.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate you allowing me to be here today. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all the Local 2 members, our paramedics and firefighters, been working tirelessly throughout this pandemic. We know it's only going to get worse before it gets better, and it's a huge relief for our members and their families to know that the Essex Hotel is going to have a room for them, be it whether they have the virus and they have mild symptoms. They're not going to bring it home to their families. Everybody's got a different situation that they live with, whether they got young children, whether they have somebody with an autoimmune deficiency, whether we have senior citizens, our parents that we're taking care of, or our grandparents. So this is going to be a huge relief to a lot of our members. While we're dealing with this pandemic, we're still dealing with everyday fire calls. We have fires, we have hazardous materials, we have water rescues. This is just an addition to what our men and women at Local 2 do on a day in and day out basis. They are absolutely fantastic. The mayor mentioned that there was a graduation earlier for 34 people, and usually there's a lot of fanfare that goes with that, and families and celebration. It's down at Navy Pier generally. Well, they couldn't do that. They've been called to duty early. Now, that's not to say they've not been properly trained, because every one of them that came on this job are already paramedics. They're just learning the Chicago way of being a paramedic and how the firefighters are going to assist them and how we go through with different day-to-day activities that we have to handle. This is a pleasure to be here. This is a fantastic weight off of a lot of our spouses' shoulders, knowing that there's some place that their husband, wife can go to and not have to come home after a long day. Our paramedics are working every other day, so these 34 new candidates are a welcome sight to let them go home and relieve them of duty a little bit. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Mayor, for reaching out for you and your staff to get this hotel and all these rooms for our members. It's a fantastic opportunity, and Local 2 appreciates it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Kevin Graham, the president of the Fraternal Order, please. President Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. And I do want to say thank you for getting this hotel in place. It is important to our members that they do not bring a virus home to their family. It has been a point of contention that we have talked about with our own members and what we are planning to do. So I have to thank the mayor for getting this in place. I can tell you on a personal note, my wife's a physician, and we have had a conversation about which one of us would be living someplace else provided the other gets this virus. So these are conversations that are going on in households. They are going on in Lodge 7 members' homes. And they are concerned about their spouses. They are concerned about their children. And so with this hotel in place, it is one thing less that they have to worry about. Our members are working long hours. They are looking out for the public safety, and they're putting themselves at risk. I can't tell you how proud I am of all the members of Lodge 7. And although there are still things that we are trying to work out, this is a great step in the direction that we need to be. And so I thank you. I know there was a question that somebody had, or do you want to take that later?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, and so now we will take any questions. I think you're the poll reporter today?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Mayor, would you kindly just, so now we understand we have hotels for first responders, and we also have other hotel rooms. Could you just sort of recap and break
Sure.
down those numbers?
So let me put it in context. Throughout this crisis, we've really been focused on 3 areas of high priority for us. Making sure that our healthcare system has the capacity that is necessary to meet the surge that we know is going to be coming. So we're closely monitoring every single day what the ICU rooms are, how many of those are occupied by folks who have the virus or are pending under investigation. We also want to make sure that we're supporting the healthcare workers, because they're also clearly on the front lines, and we've done a number of things to support them, but also our first responders. They literally run to danger in this time like no other. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to relieve the pressure on them and support them. And then, of course, we've been worried about and supporting our vulnerable population, our seniors, our people with underlying medical conditions, and, of course, our homeless. Now, when it comes to first responders and healthcare workers, one of the things that we put into place really last week was bringing online 2,600 hotel rooms. What those hotel rooms are intended to be, subject to today's announcement, is a respite for people who have been in acute care or need to isolate themselves or quarantine themselves, but can't do so safely in their homes. So we started with Hotel 166, and again, big shout out to them, and we brought other hotel resources online. But we listened to conversations that we've been having with President Graham, but also President Tracy, and also frontline first responders, who are, as both of these presidents have said, worried about the possibility of taking this virus home to their families. And many of them are just like us, right? They have seniors in their homes, they have people with underlying medical conditions, and they are working tirelessly, long hours. So in response to the things that we've heard from the different unions and individual members, we wanted to provide an additional support for our first responders. And that's why I think this hotel really provides an incredible opportunity. Again, thanks to the Essex group and the Oxford group, who are the leaders of there. They've stepped up in a big way. I don't want healthcare workers to think that we've forgotten about them. We're going to be bringing online resources for them as well.
And speaking of supporting our healthcare workers, our healthcare system, where are we at with this stay-at-home order? Are you seeing or hearing of any more issues in reference to the past press conferences I've attended with you, where you've had to sort of put that hammer down on the public?
Well, look, I don't shy away from being tough and calling balls and strikes as I see them, but I'm really happy to report that since we put in more controls, closing down the lakefront, closing down the Riverwalk and the 606, we've seen incredible compliance for most parts of the city. We have a few issues that we're working on with some, I think, a comprehensive plan to help support areas where the police department is still seeing some challenges, but overall, the city has responded remarkably well.
And I've got a couple of questions for my colleague, Craig
Sure.
Wall. Mayor, could you address the police board and their press conference tomorrow where they will name 3 finalists for the next superintendent? Are you committed to selecting from those 3?
Well, I've got to see what the announcement is, obviously, but that's really up to the police board, and we'll respond as soon as the names are public.
And one more from him. Also, how has the pandemic impacted the summer anti-violence preparations? If so, how?
Well, they haven't really impacted them. We started our summer planning back in January. Now, obviously, we are very focused like a laser beam on making sure that we are responding to the immediate needs and challenges that this virus gives us every single day. But we fundamentally still are focused on the incredibly important mission of keeping our people safe. And that planning still continues. The work that we're doing in neighborhoods all over the city, I think, is actually giving us helpful additional insights into what we need to be doing and thinking about this summer, but we'll be ready for summer.
We have a few questions from print and radio reporters. Mayor or President Graham, Kai Martin with NBC would like your thoughts about hundreds of sick calls from CPD officers, some COVID diagnoses, and how that may pose a public safety issue.
Why don't I start, and then I'll invite President Graham to come up. Look, the reality is this disease doesn't discriminate. It doesn't discriminate by race, geography, or otherwise. It's not surprising that we're starting to see confirmed cases among our first responders. We expected that to be true. But what we have done, and we will continue to do in partnership with the union, is make sure that we continue to take efforts to really keep our first responders safe. So we've had a great discussion last week about some practical things that we could do around roll calls, around police districts. But the critical thing that we've done, and we will continue to do, is make sure that we're transparent about what we know, that we are getting our frontline first responders great training, and we'll continue to do that. And then we're being responsive to what we're hearing where we can do more. And that's what really came, those conversations are what evolved into the announcement that we had today. President Graham, I don't know if you want to add more to that.
I think part of the question was about the people who have called in sick. Was that it?
Yeah.
Right. Look, we have asked our members, if you are feeling ill, if you do not think you should be at work, be on the medical, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. Certainly, if people are feeling ill, if they're not sure, they should stay home. Get checked out, and then as we've seen over the weekend, when people realize they're going to be okay, they return to work. So a slight uptick in what we have asked them to do, there's nothing wrong with.
That's right. And I want to underscore that. I think President Graham is 100% right. We've been saying from the beginning of this virus, if you're sick or even a little bit, you should stay home. That same applies to our first responders, our CTA transit workers, our sanitation workers, the people that we have designated as essential to providing services in the city. That rule still applies to them. If you're sick, stay home. And I'm grateful that people are abiding by that.
We have a few off-topic questions for you, Mayor. From WGN Radio. New York received the USS Comfort as a hospital ship to offer treatment to non-COVID-19 patients. Could we see a similar ship being deployed along Chicago's lakefront to treat people here?
I don't anticipate a large naval vessel on the shores of Lake Michigan, but that's why we are taking other steps to make sure that we have added capacity to help meet the challenge and the surge that's going to come to our hospitals. McCormick Place is a perfect example of that. We're working hand in glove with the state, with the Army Corps of Engineers, and Illinois Emergency Management to make sure that we get that alternative facility set up as quickly as possible so we meet the need.
From Bloomberg, there are reports of state and local layoffs in other parts of the country. Is Chicago considering cutting headcount and laying off workers given the expected decline in tax revenue and rising coronavirus costs?
No, we are not expecting to do any layoffs. I've said this before, but it bears repeating. Our economy in this region is incredibly diverse. And if you look at how we have fared in other economic downturns, whether it was 9/11, the Great Recession of 2008 or 2009, we've had some impact, of course, but when we rebounded back very, very strong and well. For our city revenues, no one revenue stream is more than 13%, and what we call the economically sensitive revenues, streams, none of them in the aggregate add up to more than 25%. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say there's not going to be some impact. There will be, but I think we're very well situated to weather this storm because we anticipated in our budget forecast for 2020 that we would experience in this year some kind of economic downturn. Now, nobody anticipated that it would be due to a pandemic. But we built the budget this year to be able to be responsive to that kind of worst case scenario.
We have a few questions from Fran Spielman at the Sun-Times. Is it your intention to name a new
Can't we limit her to one?
You
Sorry,
heard it, Fran. You heard it, Fran.
All right.
Is it your intention to name a new superintendent at the virtual city council meeting on April 15th? If so, why?
No.
And the last two questions go to Kate.
All right, just to clarify once more, just to make sure we have it correct, these hotels will be for first responders who are well but don't or want to be home. You mentioned it's a respite. I just want to make sure we have that.
Yeah,
correct.
that's right. So with this is people who are sick. We're going to make sure that they get the treatment that they need, in particular our first responders who are so critically important in this time of need. This is really for respite for them. As President Tracy said, and I think President Graham said, they're working incredible hours, and we all know that. And they're worried about bringing the virus home to their families, and we want to make sure that they get a place that's close for them to be able to just take a load off, if you will, and be there, get respite, and be ready for the next shift. So this is really to provide extra supports for them and to really demonstrate that we are grateful for their sacrifice and service. And this is something that we are, as a city, assuming the financial burden for.
And Mayor, my last question, hopefully this puts a smile on your face. Those memes. I listened to you this morning, and you had such a lighthearted response about it. Any comment for us on what you've been seeing, and if you have a favorite one that you've come across?
Well, there are a number that I like well, and we've been having fun with it, my wife and my daughter and I. But look, I think this is a really intense situation, and we all need to find the humor, and from humor stems hope. And I know from my experiences over my life that when you have hope, you can heal. Hope is the thing that gets you up in the morning and propels you over the course of the day. And we need that hope. We need to have that sense that even in this dark storm, there's light. And really, I think, to me, what the memes say and the fun I think that people are having with them, and as you know, yesterday we launched our own PSAs, poking fun, but really emphasizing the importance of staying home to save lives, and the overwhelming response that we've received, like with the response to the memes, means to me that people are hungry for something to hang on to, something that will take their mind off of the stress and fear that I think people are legitimately feeling in this time like no other in our lifetime. So I'm happy to be doing my small part to look out for our city, because that's what I feel every day. My job is to make sure that we are doing everything we can to make this city safe, that we're being responsive to the needs of our residents, including our first responders, but also others who really just need to know their mayor hears them, sees them, and cares about them. And I want people to know that I'm working tirelessly 7 days a week to make sure that we get through this and that we heal and that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There it is. Mayor Lori Lightfoot, along with leaders who represent our first responders at police headquarters right now. The big headline out of this is a dedicated space, a place of respite for our first responders. That is the Hotel Essex, downtown, 274 rooms. And the mayor said that these are the people who come in contact with this virus every single day. And if they're concerned about potentially taking that virus home to their families, this is a place where they can stay and get rest before heading back to work.
Mayor Lightfoot also spoke about speaking at a graduation for 34 new paramedics this morning. Those paramedics were granted accelerated coursework to allow them to graduate ahead of schedule so that they could respond to the COVID-19 threat in Chicago. The mayor saying now that the cases in the city are doubling every 3 to 4 days, and they expect them to peak within a few weeks. We'll have more on this coming up for you on our news at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, also expecting an update a little bit later on this morning, in about 25 minutes from now, from Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle. You can see that live on our news at 11 o'clock. For Tanya Babbage, I'm Terrell Brown. Back to The View. We'll see you back here at 11.
This has been a special report from ABC 7 Eyewitness News. We now return to our regular program schedule.
Helped free from prison. What was the purpose of the meeting this time?